And that's the first round where GSP gets a takedown. These are the hard elbows. And here's a combination in the second round. And Hendricks tried to close the show. There's a nice right hand by the champion.
I have to go away for a little bit at least. And I want to, personal things happening, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to the UFC who gave me the chance. Everyone, for the support. Thank you very much.
I'm blown away that George St-Pierre won that fight. And listen, I'm a promoter. He's the biggest pay-per-view star on the planet for me, and I still don't think he won that fight. I think the Nevada State Athletic Commission is atrocious. I think the governor needs to step in immediately before these guys destroy this sport like they did boxing.
That was Dana White and George St-Pierre after GSP's controversial split decision victory over Johny Hendricks at UFC 167. Here to give us their insight, Jeremy Filosa from 98.5 FM. Hi,
hey,
Jer.
How are you?
And owner of Adrenaline Performance Center, Jon Chaimberg. Jon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ali.
All right, so that was just a little bit of what Dana White had to say after the fight. He said Johny Hendricks won, and he blasted the Nevada State Athletic Commission. What's your opinion as to whether George St-Pierre won that fight?
Well, if you consider it the Ultimate Damage Championship, then you can make a case for Johny Hendricks because he did do more damage in rounds 2 and 4. This is called the Ultimate Fighting Championship. It is a sport, and we go by a 10-point must system. Means each round you basically give 10 points to the winner, 9 to the loser. If someone's really, really dominating and gets knocked down and destroyed, it's maybe a 10-8. But if there's 5 rounds in a fight, you can give 2 rounds to Johny Hendricks, which are rounds 2 and 4. Rounds 1, 3, and 5 are a lot closer. So if you're giving those rounds to George, he could win the fight 3-2, even though he's taken more punishment, and still win the fight. He is the champion. He did retain the belt.
Well, there's one thing. I mean, we found out after the fight that George St-Pierre had a lot less damage than Johny Hendricks had in reality because George St-Pierre has been given, 45 days to rest, and Johny Hendricks has been given 6 months. So those are things we did not know about. But for the everyday fan, for the people that were in the arena and they were booing, a lot of people thought that Hendricks had won the fight. I had Hendricks 3 rounds to 2 because I gave Hendricks the first round, which was a very tight round. But let me tell you one thing. I mean, the way we saw the 2 athletes come out of that fight, had it been the other way around, had Hendricks been, had lacerations and cuts like that, the way GSP had, and had he lost the fight, it would have been a scandal here in Quebec. People would be screaming.
George's last 3 fights, though, his faces look the exact same. So George scratches very easily, he bruises very easily. Even though he did take a beating, the last 2 fights he's looked the exact same. So I spoke to George. He's like Wolverine. He looks perfectly normal now.
Now, after the fight, George said that he needed to step away for a while because of personal issues.
Right.
Now, obviously, immediately after taking a beating is not the ideal time to pontificate on one's future. Can either of you shed some light on what these issues might be?
Well, I don't want to go into the issues. What I can say is George has put in more time in that octagon than anybody else in the history of the UFC. He surpassed whoever the second person was. So he doesn't owe it to anybody to basically make excuses. He's been in there long enough. If he wants a break, he can take a break. He deserves a rest. He's made that company money. He's made money. The fans love him. Let him just rest.
Yeah, I think I agree. And you know what? I lost a lot of respect for Dana White this week because the comments he made after the fight honestly were disrespectful towards a guy who brought a lot of money to the UFC, a lot of glory. I mean, this business has only been around for 20 years, and he's a big part of why they are where they are today. When GSP got hurt and had his operation, he didn't take a gimme fight. He came right back and fought Carlos Condit, then he went for Nick Diaz. There's been a lot of respect between the two, and I thought that Dana White really should have waited a little bit, should have found out, should have spoken to George before he made those comments. I think it's a big lack of respect, unfortunately.
Well, whatever the case may be, Dana White seems to think that George's issues aren't as big as he thinks they are. He's confident there will be a rematch. I know. Well, this is what the fans were also responding. But I think what really got them going when he suggested a rematch, an immediate or in the soon future rematch, was that he owes it to the fans. He owes it to the company, and he owes it to Johny Hendricks.
Did you see the reaction in the building when he announced, listen, I'm going to take some time off right away? Everybody backed off the booing because they said, oh, we might lose this guy. So there's a big respect there. And for him to go back into the octagon in 6 months and fight Johny Hendricks in the frame of mind that he is right now would be completely stupid. He would have no chance to win that fight if he doesn't go in the right frame of mind. So if I was him, I'd listen to the doctors and I'd listen to George St-Pierre before I'd listen to Dana White.
Just so people understand George's mentality, when George has a fight, If he wins that fight, they line up the next person. He cannot sleep until he's finished that fight. So the whole training camp, he doesn't sleep. He basically is consumed by the next person. So if he wins that fight, they line up another guy and another guy and another guy. It never ends. So after his knee operation, he had motivation to come back from the knee operation, but then again, never ends, never ends. He just keeps winning. When is it enough? When is he finished fighting? He needs some time to think. Give him that time to think.
So basically, this panel should have been called, he said, what?
Yeah, exactly.
But Dana White also said that this had nothing to do with retiring, that George wants to fight. What do you think about that?
Well, listen, I think right now he needs to rest, and he needs to think of where he wants to go. My good friend Arturo Gatti fought 2 fights too many because HBO pressured him, and those 2 fights did more damage than anybody can imagine. So he needs to think about himself. If he's ready to come back in a year or 9 months, great, we'll welcome him. And if he thinks he's done, then we'll tip our hats off to him and say, great career.
Yeah, I don't think George's health, body and mind, knowing him, are not good. I think he needs a rest. He needs to be able to sleep, start a life, maybe look to other things, and maybe find motivation somewhere else and then come back down the road. But right now, give him some time to think.
John, Jared, thanks so much for your insight.
Thank you.
That's your Montreal Connected panel for this week.